All right, everybody. This is Joe Kozlowitz here with Greenhouse Data. Thanks for joining us this morning. I'm going to give a quick introduction about the company, and then I'll go ahead and turn things over to Thomas Burns and Josh Larson, our virtual desktop experts, for the presentation. Greenhouse Data is an infrastructure as a service company. We are headquartered in Cheyenne, Wyoming. We're a VMware vCloud powered partner. In addition to our Cheyenne facility, we operate data centers in Portland, Oregon, and Newark, New Jersey. And we're currently building an additional 35,000 square foot facility in Cheyenne. We offer high availability cloud hosting, co-location, and managed IT services. Today's webinar will be an overview of virtual desktop infrastructure, or VDI, and in particular, VMware Horizon Suite. We'll cover some use cases, a demo, licensing requirements, everything you'll need for a successful VDI deployment. Feel free to ask questions in the chat window, and we'll save some time at the end for Q&A. Joining me today are Thomas Burns, one of our founders and Vice President of Business Development, and Josh Larson, one of our engineers and a VDI project lead. And with that, Thomas, I'm going to go ahead and turn things over to you.
Good morning, everybody. Well, I would imagine it's morning probably everywhere in the domestic U.S. Thank you very much for joining our webinar today. I just have a couple of quick screens to talk a little bit about Greenhouse Data in a little bit more detail about our expertise around virtual infrastructure and data center services, and a little bit about the value of what VDI can actually do for an organization. Then I'll turn it over to Josh, who is one of our senior infrastructure engineers. He has been with the company he's one of our longest tenured engineers and provides some of the highest level expertise within our organization. And so just a little bit about Greenhouse Data. We are a data center services company that does, our main focuses are around co-location, virtualized infrastructure, aka the cloud, including virtual desktop infrastructure. We do build and manage and operate our own data center facilities. So we have a 24/7 365 days a year NOC staff and engineering team that has a wide range of specialties, from Microsoft, Linux, database services, applications, network architects, storage architects. So a very broad range of services and expertise that allows us to have a very high touch customer service model. We understand that IT infrastructure, regardless if it's VDI, if it's cloud, or if it's co-location for that matter, is the foundation of a company's success. And if there are challenges and issues with that foundation, you have someone that you can access for support at any time to help troubleshoot, to help resolve any issues, regardless if it's customer created. Our service team is directed to help resolve those issues no matter what they might be. So and that's been really one of the things that's helped Greenhouse Data become a very successful infrastructure provider over the last 8 years. We are a green-focused company, a sustainably minded company. We built out our data center infrastructures to be more efficient. We currently are running at about a 1.2 PUE, power usability effectiveness ratio. We are on the EPA's list of 100 best data center service companies as far as purchasing wind power. We buy green e-credits, but much of our focus around sustainability is efficiency in that data center, utilizing methodologies, policies, and technologies to be more efficient, to lower our electrical overhead so that we can save our clients money, invest in our support staff, and focus on technologies that are tried and true. Very process, procedure-driven, and again, that customer-centric approach has really helped our client base gain a lot of trust with Greenhouse Data and continually to expand utilizing our services. What we're really here to talk about today is the benefits of virtual desktop infrastructure and some of the ins and outs of how that infrastructure works. One of the main benefits of utilizing a company like Greenhouse Data to deploy virtual desktop infrastructure is we are specialists in deploying that style of infrastructure. We have been a VMware partner since 2007, so we have a very long tenure developing, deploying both private and public virtualized infrastructures for our client base, and it allows you to take advantage of our expertise, where we have spent the money training our employees, testing in lab environments, running production environments for our customers, and primarily on our own hardware. So in sort of the layout here, in a typical VDI deployment, we want to bring in a Active Directory, which most people are fairly familiar with. A component is the VMware View Manager and VMware vCenter. And on top of that, we build a high availability physical infrastructure so that if we have, we basically build in an N+1 redundancy to our infrastructure so that we can handle doing maintenances. If we have failures on physical hardware, it doesn't affect our client base. We will use vMotion to move VDI systems from one piece of physical hardware to another without any downtime. And then there's a lot of aspects of efficiency built into the VMware View application itself, enabling us to create master images and clone those master images for very quick deployment. But I think the real key here is that we are owning and operating this physical infrastructure for the client base. This is not something that you have to do. You don't have to lifecycle these machines. You don't have to manage the high availability aspect of it. We are doing all of that internally, and again, that is our expertise. Some of the things that people don't think of, I think a lot of people are familiar with virtual desktop infrastructure. It is a fairly well-known technology. People have been using it for over 10 years. The main difference about what is the value now of, say 5 years ago is most people were deploying VDI infrastructures within their own location. So they would have a server closet of some sort. They would build a stack of physical hardware where they would layer some type of virtualization mechanism over that. In our case, it's VMware View. In other cases, people used Citrix Zen and other products. But now we were able to centralize, because technology has just come far enough in the past 5 years, with not only with the virtualization technology, but also infrastructure, bandwidth capacity has become so much better now. Storage performance on the SAN side has become so much more cost effective that we can deploy this in a centralized data center environment so that it can take advantage of an enterprise data center facility. So as I mentioned earlier, we build out our own data center facilities and manage and support those environments with our own employees. We don't outsource any of those people. So our clients can take advantage of our expertise and our proprietary value, which is just data center services. That is all we do, and that is what our expertise is. So with deploying a VDI with Greenhouse Data, you get to take advantage of those people. High availability, very important concept to this. This basically removes any of the direct relationship to physical hardware. If there's a physical hardware failure because of the N+1 design of our infrastructure, we can lose pieces of physical hardware, whether it's a switch, a firewall, or a physical server, or a SAN infrastructure. it is automatically, within microseconds, moved to another piece of physical hardware that is waiting and in backup for that type of scenario. Speed of delivery. Obviously, businesses are in competition every day, and the faster and more efficient we can move, the better. So when we need to deploy a new account, a new hire, or recover from a system that has been lost, the ability to grab a clone, spin that clone up in a matter of seconds, and then add the data that's already stored there that's personalized for that particular user, it's very fast and very efficient. Increased security. So most people don't understand that a data center services company that specializes in deploying IT infrastructure is much more savvy and much more focused on security than, say, a general company that's running a small data center or a server closet. This is all we think about is security. So all of our technicians are trained. All of our people are gone through a very distinct process to learn about how security works in the environment, and we can advise our clients, and we use a lot of different products to help secure those environments. But it also works on another side for virtual desktop interface, is when someone loses their laptop. All of the data that is related to that laptop is actually stored in our facility and is only accessible if we provide access to it. So we can shut systems down, we can block people out, especially in cases of fraud or a stolen device. We can implement from a very centralized region and lock people out from that data. Built-in backup and disaster recovery. Because the nature of the environment, we can very easily back up all VDI systems. We use a product called Avamar, which is extremely efficient. It pulls very incremental data, so when changes are made, it could be a single letter in a Word document or whatever it might be, and we maintain those backups and those disaster recovery scenarios behind the scenes so that our end clients do not have to worry about that. It's built in as a service. Centralized management. Centralized management, and one example would be automated patching, where we can go and patch everybody's virtual desktop and upgrade them, or add a security patch from a single point within our tool, so that it can be done very easily and very effectively, and the client doesn't have to worry about being on the most up-to-date. We're taking care of a lot of that information. Insight into user applications, data, and activity. So we are a HIPAA-compliant organization. We are audited every year by a specific HIPAA audit, as well as SSAE 16, which the aspect of insight into applications, we're making sure for a lot of our, such as our healthcare clients, that people are not accessing patient health information where they should not be. We have a lot of hospitals, doctors' offices, orthopedic groups, surgery groups, even dental organizations, where they have to protect that data from most of the organization, but some of that data needs to be accessible, and we can help control that access as well. So obviously, operational expenditure versus CapEx. If you were to do this yourself, essentially you have to go and buy all these servers, and that is usually, most organizations do not like capital expenditures. They're hard to predict and they're hard to control. We can build an operational expenditure model where you pay a monthly fee as low as $60 per user to be able to develop and deploy these systems. It's much more predictable budget-wise. Flexible and scalable. I mean, I think this is a tried and true concept around virtualization. It's basically as you need it, you add it, and you can also scale out and contract. If you have an organization that has some dynamic nature to it, and you add a lot of users, it may contract some users. It's an easy way of providing it. As I mentioned earlier, the speed of delivery is considerably better than deploying hardware. And I think a lot of people are talking about bring your own device, BYOD. these types of systems really make it easier because you're controlling the applications and the data from a centralized environment. And if, again, a device is lost or an employee leaves, we can control the access to that data at any time. So from a very high level, those are some of the values and benefits of virtual desktop infrastructure. I'm going to turn it over to the guy who actually puts this stuff together and helps manage it and evolve some of the process and procedure around it for our client base, Josh Larson. And I think we're going to turn it over to him now.
Thanks, Thomas. Okay. Are you guys able to see everything up on my screen, or at least the client?
Yeah, we're good.
Yes.
Okay. So as Thomas had mentioned, one of the biggest benefits of Horizon View is having your desktop up in the cloud and being able to access it by a wide range of devices. I'm going to show you some of those devices and methods that we can use to access your desktop, as well as how some of the pools are configured, and also what the back-end infrastructure looks like. The most common method of accessing your virtual desktop infrastructure is using the Horizon View client. This client is available for a lot of different platforms, Windows, Mac, Linux. It's even available for Android or iOS if you want to use a tablet or a mobile device. The Horizon View client allows you to set up one or more View servers and connect to them just directly from a laptop. In this case, I have my Horizon View server set up right here. I can go ahead and double click on it, start connecting. It's going to prompt me for a username and password, and this is all Active Directory integrated. In this case, it's the same domain that I have on the actual virtual desktop, so it's going to be able to pass my authentication directly through to the machine. I'm only going to have to authenticate once. Once I'm connected, I'm going to be able to see all the pools that my user is entitled to connect to. In my case, I only have one pool, named Demo Pool 01. I have a few different options I can use now to connect to this. If I right-click, I have two different protocols. First of which is PC over IP. PC over IP is essentially like a more robust remote desktop. It uses things like compression and encryption to take bitmap images at the desktop level and then send them over to the client that I'm using to connect. The benefit to this is I don't have to use any of the CPU power or worry about a lot of bandwidth between me and my desktop, meaning I can do things like type on a word processor without any lag, or even watch a 1080p YouTube video, which I'll show you in a minute, on my desktop. I also have the ability of setting my display to full screen or in windowed mode. So I'm going to go ahead and connect to this first. All right, now I'm sitting at my virtual desktop. In this case, I'm using a Server 2008 R2 machine that's skinned to look like Windows 7. We did this for Windows licensing reasons, so we can use data center licensing for all of our virtual desktops. We also have the ability to run Windows 7 and Windows 8 desktops if it's needed. Once I'm sitting at the desktop, I'm able to interact with it just as if I was sitting at another physical computer, meaning I have sound redirection to the physical device I'm using, as well as printer redirection. I can go ahead and click up any of my Word documents. In this case, I have an Office document here. I can browse files like I would normally, and you can see there's basically no delay in here at all. And I can also browse the internet. As I said, one of the benefits of that PC over IP is that it does a lot of bitmap encoding compression. So I can go ahead and click any of these videos, crank it up. This in case it only goes to 42480p, and watch it with very little to no lag. This window is in full screen now. It's also resizable. I can go ahead and change this to whatever I want and watch it automatically scale to fit. And then as you see some of the options I also have at the top of this window, I can also do USB mapping. Really handy if maybe I wanted to connect my phone to the laptop I'm using to connect using the client and copy an image off. In addition to using the installable View client, I'll close out of this, there is a web interface for Horizon View. The web interface uses, first of all, the web interface allows you to install the Horizon View client. All I did right now is pointed at my View connection server, and it gives me the ability to install the client. This will automatically detect which operating system you're using and download the applicable client. If you see, there's also an HTML access option to my desktop. This uses what VMware calls their BLAST protocol. And the BLAST protocol is an HTML5 implementation of PC over IP. So you get the same performance benefits and ease of use, but you don't actually have to install anything on your machine. It's all handled through a browser, assuming your browser is HTML5 compliant. To access this, all I have to do is click on the desktop here. Again, it's going to ask me to log in using the same credentials I used earlier. And it's going to show me the same demo pool. Now you can see as it connects, it's going to open up in my browser. And you can already see that I have the same applications I was working on earlier. I didn't even need to log off, relaunch any of the applications, the exact same workstation I was working on earlier. The browser interface also has the ability, if you look on the right, to go into a full screen mode. So I can work at it just as if I was working from the client. It's very, very, very seamless. Now that we looked at the client, let's jump over to the actual View Administrator console so we can see kind of how these pools and users and everything are provisioned and everything's put together. Everything in View is web interface driven. Has a quick dashboard glance, which gives me everything in my environment. I can see the ESX hosts and the data stores that that are basically running this environment. These are all the, in my case, Fiber Channel data stores that are running my disks for my VMs, my user profiles, etc. You can see the connection servers. In this case, throwing an error because I have a self-signed certificate. Normally, this would be green, and you wouldn't see this. We also have the ability to maintain user access control through the View Administrator window. Now, as I said, all the authentication is handled through Active Directory. So from this screen, we're able to search for different Active Directory security groups, search for them, and configure entitlements. And that's entitlements to a single desktop pool in our environment, meaning I could have an accounting group in Active Directory that only has access to an accounting pool, same with engineering and so on. Next, we have the pools. The pools define the groups of virtual machines in the backend infrastructure that our users are going to have access to. Pools are highly configurable, and I'll go over some of the biggest configuration items for them here. This is the pool I was using to connect into my client. As you can see, this is an automated pool. And automated pool means that I basically created a master parent level, like a gold master image for my environment, updated it, installed all my applications, and then told View whenever I need more desktops, just make a clone from my parent VM. Just keep provisioning this out as many times as I need. The other option we have is a dedicated pool, where if you already have existing VMs that you want your users to connect to, you can set up a dedicated pool in which those VMs are used. That can come in handy because you can also then configure your user entitlements so specific users get assigned to specific physical desktops. And that also comes into play with the user assignment here. My user assignment is set to dedicated assignment, meaning every time I log in, I'm going to get that same, not only desktop, but virtual machine that I logged into. The other option here is a floating assignment, which means users are automatically assigned to a different VM every time. Regardless of which user assignment you have set up, you're able to do things like profile redirection. So if I was to, I had that Office document sitting on my desktop, even if I had a floating a pool assignment, I could log into a different VM, and that Word document is still going to be on my desktop because it was redirected to a different virtual disk due to profile redirection. We also have options such as desktop source. The options are a full assignment or linked clone. Linked clone uses a single replica disk that all of my, if I'm using an automated pool, all of my new virtual machines are created from this vCenter linked clone, which saves me a lot of time because I don't have to clone. If it's a 40 gigabyte machine, I don't have to make a clone of that 40 gigabyte machine every time I want a new desktop. I use the source 40 gigabytes, and then I make a new disk to write all my changes to. This allows you to provision out desktops very, very quickly. Some of the other options we have here is setting the minimum and maximums for our pool. The minimum number of desktops, I'm always going to have one VM around with a maximum of 10. One spare powered on at any given time. That way, if I have a user that logs in, he's not sitting there waiting for a VM to automatically be provisioned and available to him. There's always one available. And then you can also configure things like the naming scheme of how you want your VMs to be set up, the default display protocols, resolutions, etc. From the screen, we can also view the desktops that we have currently provisioned. As you can see, they took my naming scheme into account and provisioned out 7 desktops. And I can see the user that's associated with these because, again, I'm using a dedicated desktop. You can interact with the desktop from the screen from a right-click menu, which gives you the ability to do things like reset a VM, which would wipe this VM and provision a new one using that parent source that I had configured. We also have options like persistent disks. This allows me to take my user profile and separate it from the actual operating system disk. I also have the ability to create another disk that could store things like the swap space or hibernation file on my VM. That way I'm not using space on my operating system disk for those types of storage that are just going to get wiped out every time anyways. So now that we've seen how the pools and desktops are kind of oriented in the environment, let's switch quickly to the back-end infrastructure. All the desktops are run inside of a vCenter cluster. As you can see here, I have a single resource pool created for my demo customer, this view environment. At the top here, I have my demo gold. This is my gold master image. This is the virtual machine that I had manually created, installed my applications and updates on, and configured how I want to use it. From this, once I choose the automatic assignments, it creates a replica machine. This replica machine is what all my desktops are going to link to when they're created. What's really neat about the way this is set up is if I want to make changes to this VM, say I need to install an application on all machines or I want to do patching, all I have to do is do that on my gold master image. Once that's done, I can refresh my replica, which is going to take a new snapshot of this machine, refresh the replica, and then at my convenience, I can reset or refresh all the desktop VMs that are built off of this replica. As you can see, some of these VMs are in a suspended state. The suspended state is invoked when a user is disconnected. That's really just to save resources on your cluster. So that's about the infrastructure in a nutshell and some of the client access to it. Let's see. Joe, did you have anything else for us to cover?
All right. Thanks, Josh. Well, we've come up right on our time limit here, so I'll just say if any of you guys need to jump off, we will be sending you an email with a recording of this webinar. We do have one question that came in. That is, an attendee is wondering whether it's generally better to go with virtual machine pooling for each VDI user or if they should use dedicated virtual machines.
It really depends on the type of workload that you're running and how many user desktops you have. The automated pooling with floating assignment is really handy if you have a large department of users that are all doing the same function. So maybe you have an accounting department that's all using Peachtree or something like that. It's very easy to just provision a set amount of desktops for them to connect to. And they'll get the same apps every time. Again, their profiles and all their settings are going to be saved on separate disks, so that's not an issue. Where the manual pool and the dedicated assignments really come in handy is your power users. If you have maybe an engineering department who needs to be able to install their own apps and have those apps on every machine that they log into, or specific apps that other users don't have, that's when it makes a lot of sense to have manual dedicated assigned desktops.
Great. That is all that we have for today. So thanks once again, everyone, for joining us. We know your time is valuable, and you will receive a quick follow-up email just with a recording. You can also find that online at greenhousedata.com under support and webinars. Have a great Tuesday.